We're going to start in a few seconds. If you could either take a seat, if there's any left, or we're missing a couple of people, but it's probably traffic, and if they get here, we will meet them then. So anyway, I think most of us know each other, but I'm going to repeat my name and repeat some of your names, so we recognize all of us here. My name is Jesus Benayas. I'm the president of the House Spain here in San Diego, and the board of directors and me is an honor to have all of you here. Thank you very much, Gerardo, for allowing us to have this celebration for Dr. Wendy Kramer here at the House of Spain. And as I mentioned to you, she has been here. She has a lot of good friends, so it was a good location to have this event. So thank you very much. As you all have met already, we have the Consul General here and his wife Teresa in front. We also have the Honorary Consul of San Diego, Rosaura. And we have the Colonel from the Spanish Air Force, Francisco Martin. His wife is also here, Isabel. There she is. Of course, we have Dr. Wendy Kramer, and we'll hear more about that, but I will let the Consul General to talk about that. We also have Dr. Ray Ashley from the Maritime Museum, which, by the way, this is from the Maritime Museum here. It's on loan to the House Spain, and you don't have any idea how many people ask what is this. And remember, Wendy, I told you that your document that you found about the ship and going to Peru with the horses and all that, this is here. We don't have a translation, so.
Okay, we'll work on it.
But there's a lot of visitors that they ask what it is, and I tell them, and I say, hey, you can also sail in this galleon, because I believe it's every Saturday, or almost every Saturday, they have a tour of the bay, about 4 hours. And I said, oh wow, yeah, well, I'm going to find out. I don't know if they call or if they come, but there's a great publicity, and it's a great model for people to see. And of course, we have the photos of the Juan Rodriguez brochure here. We also have Doug Sharp and his wife. He's a designer, and you were the responsible person for putting all this wood together, right? Yeah, it's an amazing task. We also have the former Honorary Consul of Spain, Maria Olson here, and her husband, Quentin. Dr. Iris Engstrand, historian of Spain in San Diego for years and years. She has many books, not only on the history of Spain, but on the Mission San Diego and the Father Junipero Serra. It says the years and years of history. Thank you for being here as well. We have Bob Manson, that he came from Arizona. He was the historian at the Cabrillo National Monument for 26 years. And he was with Dr. Wendy Kramer in Palma del Rio and in Cordoba as well. He has a lot of papers and things written about Cabrillo, and it's not Portuguese. Who else I forget? We have Maruja and Bob Williams that are part of the board of directors, and she's in the kitchen over there to get in some of the tapas that we will have later on. So thank you, Maruja. You, as always, do a great job. We have the vice president of the House Spain, Pedro, is over there at the door. We also have from the board of directors, Ana Ocampo and Patricia Berry as well. And We have David Buenaventura, he's from Barcelona, he's also in the board of directors. And Henry Hearns is our photographer and man of all jobs. So thank you all. Oh, I forgot to mention the daughter of Wendy Kramer, Anna Silman. She came from Toronto, and a friend of Dr. Wendy Kramer since they were babies, Risa Lent. So she's at the door over there. So it's the first time for both of you here in San Diego, correct?
Yeah.
So you picked a good time of the year. It's a beautiful weather. But I tell you a secret that all of us know, that's why we live here. It's always like this. So thank you very much to all of you for being here. I know there's a couple that I haven't met and I haven't introduced, so I'm sorry I don't have the names right here, but hopefully we'll meet you later on. So with that, I will introduce the Consul General of Spain in Los Angeles for the ceremony for the medal to Dr. Wendy Kramer. Please help me welcome.
Estimado Jesús Benayas, presidente de la Casa de España en San Diego, también al vicepresidente y demás miembros de la Casa de España aquí presentes, estimada doctora Wendy Kramer, and her daughter also, estimada cónsul honoraria de España, Rosaura Morrow Picasso, y nuestra anterior cónsul honoraria que también está aquí, María, gracias por haber venido. Estimado coronel, también Francisco Martín, aquí presente. Estimados y estimadas compatriotas y familiares de la doctora Kramer aquí presentes, es un honor para mí, como cónsul de España en esta región de los Estados Unidos, proceder al reconocimiento oficial de mi país a la doctora, tanto como profesional como persona. En primer lugar, los incansables trabajos de la señora Kramer en numerosos archivos de América y de Europa, en particular durante sus estancias en Guatemala desde 1978 y en el Archivo de Indias de Sevilla desde 1981, le han permitido documentar la historia de los primeros descubridores y conquistadores españoles en Centroamérica y más allá. Más adelante, fruto también de sus investigaciones en el mencionado Archivo de Indias, encontró los documentos que demuestran que el descubridor de la bahía de San Diego y de gran parte de la costa de California, Juan Rodríguez Cabrillo, fue inequívocamente español, nacido en la españolísima, aunque entiendo que paradójicamente no muy marinera, Palma del Río, en Córdoba. Se ponía así punto final a la absurda controversia sobre el origen de Cabrillo y al malentendido que ha perdurado desgraciadamente en San Diego durante demasiado tiempo. Por todo ello, Palma del Río le concedió muy merecidamente a la doctora Kramer en 2017 la medalla de honor de dicha ciudad. Sus investigaciones en este ámbito están magníficamente recogidas en su libro titulado El español que exploró California, Juan Rodríguez Cabrillo, de Palma del Río a Guatemala, editado por la Diputación de Córdoba en 2018. Pero la importancia de las investigaciones de Wendy va más allá de esa bella localidad cordobesa y trascienden a la historia de los descubrimientos españoles en América, que debemos reivindicar como una de las grandes epopeyas de los viajes que han permitido completar la geografía de la Tierra en beneficio de toda la humanidad. Con la condecoración que vamos a imponer hoy a la doctora Kramer, mi país y mi gobierno no solo queremos reconocer sus méritos profesionales en el ámbito de la paleografía y de la historia, que permiten acercar aún más a España con América y en particular con los Estados Unidos, sino queremos asimismo reconocer a la persona, a una profesora canadiense que en la mejor tradición de los grandes hispanistas anglosajones, ha demostrado a través de su vida su amor por España, por nuestra cultura y por nuestra historia. Es por todo ello que me alegra esta tarde que estemos reunidos aquí para hacer público nuestro reconocimiento, merecido desde hace ya bastantes años, y que se concreta en la concesión e imposición de la condecoración de Isabel la Católica, por cierto, una de las grandes mujeres y reinas de la historia que impulsó la proyección de España y de Europa hacia América, cambiando de esta forma la historia universal. Voy a continuar, por tanto, leyendo el título de la concesión de la citada condecoración de España a la doctora Wendy Kramer, felicitándola por este alto honor y agradeciéndole en nombre de mi gobierno y de mi país su cariño por España y su valioso trabajo por mejorar y completar el conocimiento de nuestra propia historia. Voy ahora a leer el título de concesión de la condecoración. Felipe VI, rey de España, gran maestre de la Orden de Isabel la Católica, y en su nombre el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores, Unión Europea y Cooperación, gran canciller de la Orden, en atención a los méritos y circunstancias que concurren en la señora Wendy Kramer, ha tenido a bien otorgarle la encomienda de la Orden de Isabel la Católica. Por tanto, se le conceden los honores, distinciones y uso de las insignias que le corresponden a tenor de los estatutos de esta condecoración. En Madrid, a 19 de junio de 2024. Y ahora el momento más complicado, que es la imposición de la condecoración. Mi mujer ha prometido ayudarme con el...
No sea que yo vea muy bien.
Porque tiene una pequeña dificultad, digamos.
Es que estamos en esta época que ya... No, pero esas son de sol. ¿Sabes? Es que hay que buscar el agujerito. Wendy, no sé si te das muchas fotos.
Hemos ensayado...
Technical difficulties.
Ahora sí.
Entonces se
Ten
coloca
cuidado porque...
¿De qué
a la
lado?
izquierda.
Ok.
Qué bonita, ¿no? Qué honor de Wendy. Voilà.
Jesus, is there something to stand on?
Yeah,
I bet
there's
there
something,
is.
you have to be careful, this is like...
I have to be careful? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Wait, Jesus with the stool. Oh, it's a step ladder. Well, that's gonna be really interesting. Oh my God, have you ever, okay. Really? Really? There you go. I would like to thank the Honorable Consul General of Spain and California, Gerardo Fueyo, for presenting me with this award on behalf of King Philip VI of Spain and the Grand Chancellor, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I'm honored and moved to receive this decoration of the Royal Order of Isabella the Catholic. I am delighted to have here with me my daughter Anna from New York and a childhood friend from Toronto, Risa. In addition, I'm so pleased once again to be amongst my San Diego friends and colleagues, particularly Robert Munson, former historian from the Cabrillo National Monument, who's come here from Arizona, and Ira Sangstrand, Professor Emeritus from the University of San Diego. In addition, I want to thank Dr. Ray Ashley and his team at the Maritime Museum of San Diego. Thank you, and Doug Sharp, naval architect, for designing and building a replica of Cabrillo's ship, the San Salvador. What an extraordinary thing to discover when I first came here in 2016, that you had his boat. I had no idea. Okay. I want to give special thanks to Jesus Benayes, Director of the House of Spain, who has tirelessly worked to promote my research findings and provided friendship and support for the last 8 years. Thank you for hosting this wonderful event today. I first visited San Diego in the spring of 2016 to give a talk at the Casa de España about my findings to do with Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo. I'd never been here before, and my research has not been centered on California, but on Guatemala, and I'm happy to see my Guatemalan friend Tatiana here. Particularly on the first generation of mostly Spanish conquerors who took part in the conquest of Guatemala beginning in 1524. The topic of my PhD in 1990 and of the book that I published a few years later was the distribution of tribute, services, and indigenous lands to the conquistadors of Guatemala from 1524 to 1544, so I was very focused on those 20 years. Cabrillo was amongst this group, and he lived in Guatemala for 18 years until heading off to what would later be called California in 1542. And it was this voyage to California that distinguished him as an important historical figure. In September 2015, while doing an online search on the General Archive of the Indies and Seville website, I came across more than 5 documents describing criminal activity that took place aboard a ship traveling from Veracruz in Mexico to Sevilla with gold being transported from Guatemala. Cabrillo just happened to be a passenger on the ship and one of the many eyewitnesses called to give sworn testimony about the theft of the gold. It was in this documentation that he declared in 1531 that he was from the town of Palma del Rio in Córdoba, Spain. The news of my discovery generated considerable interest. The international press and digital media reported it worldwide, and it was considered newsworthy not only in California, but throughout Latin America, Spain, and Portugal. I subsequently took a little detour from my normal research, and I published an article about my findings in the Journal of San Diego History with Iris Engstrand, thank you again, and then a monograph in Spanish that was published in Córdoba, Spain, and an English translation of that book that was published by the Maritime Museum of San Diego. The mayor of Palma del Rio invited me to give a keynote speech at their annual history conference in 2016, and in 2017 they invited me back to give me the Medal of the City. In 2018, I returned to Spain for a book launch and a speaking tour in Andalusia. The high point being a talk I gave at the General Archive of the Indies in Seville, where I had lived and worked from 1981 to 1985. From 2016 to 2019, thus, I ended up following in Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo's footsteps to tell his story. I went to Guatemala, where I always go, to the town he held in tribute, Coban in Alta Verapaz, where they were delighted to hear about him. They didn't know they'd had an encomendero. And I went to Ensenada, Mexico, San Diego, Sevilla, and of course to Palma del Rio. Most of my academic life has involved research in Spanish archives about Guatemala. The Spaniards kept extraordinary records, and the Spanish archives have preserved these records. I've been lucky enough to spend my life reading 16th century manuscripts in Spanish, and sometimes when you spend your life doing research, you find things. I want to highlight the vision and leadership of the Spanish Ministry of Culture and Sports for its large-scale digitalization initiative, which has revolutionized research on Spain and Latin America. They have allowed a global community of researchers to use their collections and have been the custodians par excellence of these invaluable manuscripts. Thank you. Some final words. Cabrillo was a man with ambition and skill. He was a conqueror, a crossbowman, a gold miner, a merchant, a landowner of indigenous towns, head of the first shipyard in Central America, owner and master shipbuilder of 7 or 8 ships, slave owner, father of at least 5 children, partner and husband of an indigenous woman and a Spanish one, admiral and explorer. He died while exploring the west coast of California, but he lived in Santiago de Guatemala. And yes, he said that he was born in Spain, in Palma del Rio. Thank you very much.
Is there any particular particular questions that you would like to ask Dr. Wendy Kramer while she's here? Of course, you can talk with her privately while we have some tapas. We have wine, sangria, water, Coke, whatever you would like to do.
I have a question. I heard that when they conquer a new territory, they split the land on the conquer based on what they keep to the conquer. If they keep more weapons or they have forces, they get the best portion of the new city. Is that true?
Well, maybe in theory, it often didn't play out like that. The conquest, at least of Guatemala, was piecemeal and rather chaotic. So, I mean, you know, maybe in theory, the idea was if you're part of a conquering expedition to an area, you were given
And also I
a
heard
selection
that
of,
the
you
name
know,
of Guatemala is not came from the Mayan, came from the Nahuatl, because most of the conquer were from Mexico.
yeah, well, they're still discussing what Guatemala means. What have you heard, Tatiana? I think the Guatemalans are still discussing what the word Guatemala means.
Thank you.
So, there's another question there. Ignacio?
Congratulations, Dr. Kramer.
Thank you.
I have a question. Recently, I was looking at Wikipedia.
Okay,
And there's some information there. The latest is that certain people are indicating that nativo, that was nativo, and they're saying that that means naturalized.
Right.
So, what is your opinion on that?
In the documentation of the 16th century, they almost never use the word nacido. They say natural de. That was the terminology they used to say where they came from. If somebody was also naturalized, it's a very rare occurrence in the 16th century, naturalized. I don't see how a Portuguese teenager would have been in a señoría, privately owned town by a Spanish admiral, which is what Alma was in that time. How he would have somehow been naturalized there, it doesn't seem like that would have taken place. But in the documentation, and even nowadays, I think natural de means to be from a place. I looked on my database, I've got 20,000 entries. I looked up the word nacido, I looked up natural, and natural is a terminology that comes up over and over and over again. So to say you were from a place in the documentation, 16th century, they didn't say natural y nacido, they said natural de. And in the documentation where I found this information on Cabrillo, there are lots of other witnesses. He's not at all important in 1531. He's just another guy on the boat. And they all said, when they were asked where they were from, which was part of their sworn testimony, they all used the same terminology. They said natural de. So,
Thank you.
I thought a lot about it. I looked at it.
Question, can you estimate, or maybe you know, on how many occasions in the documents that you looked at, where there were legal proceedings, where Cabrillo did say exactly that? There's more than one, I think.
Oh, no, there's, I think there's 5 or 6 of them I found. There's one very important one, which is a power of attorney that he gave, he was in Cadiz, that he gave to his future father-in-law, and it was for the return of some gold that was being held at the House of Trade, that he was trying to get back. And it was a process that he needed, a power of attorney, someone to represent him. And he said, natural de Alma de Viseriglio, exactly there. It doesn't seem a circumstance where he's making it up. I also don't think on a boat with all these witnesses, because the criminal case took place aboard the boat. I think people knew who was on the boat, who was from Portugal, or from Cordoba, which is, as you know, the Consul General of San Diego knows very well, the Cordobese accent is very distinctive. People knew, they all knew where each other was from. It was not a situation where somebody was pretending they're from somewhere else. And if you're gonna pretend you're from somewhere else, pretend you're from Sevilla. Right?
He never went back to Spain,
He did in 1531.
and then back to Guatemala.
He went back to
And then
Guatemala.
he died.
He died here, off
Yeah.
the coast of
California.
California. Yeah, he went back to, he got married in Spain to Sevillana, and he brought her back to Guatemala, and he had 2 sons with her, and then he set off for,
And there are records on that,
Oh,
according
yeah.
to the paper, that he had to get permission of the el dote, which means the things when you get married, you have presents and dishes and silver from the government of Spain, and they have to explain again
Yeah.
why that. You can explain it better than me.
Well, all the paperwork involved, what, you mean from leaving Spain and going?
Right, yeah, coming back with
He had
with
to
the
get
wife.
paperwork to bring back, silverware. You couldn't travel with silver items unless you had them declared to go back to Guatemala. So he had to get permission. He bought a black slave couple. He took them back to Guatemala as well. I mean, that's the reality. That's all the paperwork I've seen. So, you know, and we know he had at least 3 daughters, we think, with his indigenous partner. We don't know much about her.
But they were all married to other, I don't know if it's Spaniards, but he married them, Cabrillo married their daughters to,
He married his daughters to
Yes.
Spaniards.
and then the 2 sons that he had with the
Beatriz.
Beatriz from Sevilla, also in Guatemala,
Yeah, they remained there.
they remained there,
They,
correct?
yeah, they became very prominent there, actually, yes.
And,
Yeah, Ray?
okay, go ahead.
Oh, I forgot to say, we didn't have the last question, I have a question, but just wanna say that your shipmates at the Maritime Museum are all very proud of you. Just
Oh,
so
wow. It appears to me that, or it appears that the belief that Cabrillo might have been Portuguese seems to originate from the reference by Antonio de Herrera. Uh-huh.
So do you have an explanation for that appellation?
Well, there's lots of mistakes in the chronicler's books. They're huge. They're, you know, you just expect there to be errors. We all make mistakes. And then there's typos that could have taken place. There were other people on the ships who were Portuguese. There were some other Juan Rodriguez's around in Panama and Nicaragua who were Portuguese. I could see.
But there was no.
But it was after his death.
Yeah, so that wasn't code for anything, like he was a converso or?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so. Mm-mm. I think it's just
Thank you.
an error and maybe a typographic one.
And so we can track the journey from the peninsula to Cuba, because I think they arrived to Cuba and then participate at the expedition of Bartolomé de Narváez
Uh-huh.
to pressure Cortés, and from
Yeah,
the
to
conquer
Mexico,
of
yeah.
Mexico Tenochtitlan.
Yeah.
Maybe because the Casa de Contratación, I heard that they had to approve for a peninsular people to travel to America. You need the approval.
Yeah, you needed permission to travel.
So maybe,
It was very easy to bring in household members, so you'd see people who got licensed to travel to the New World, but you'd see like, you know, Juan, Pedro, Maria,
yeah.
you know, who were part of their household, so there's no information about them.
Yeah.
So it's actually, lots of people did come over without there being any record of who they were. Yeah. So that's some of the problems with Spanish records as well.
I can
Ways
just
to get
add
around.
that I got a call from a fellow from the San Diego Union who called me and says, hey, there's this really weird thing I got. There's a person who apparently has found the birthplace of Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, and she's some Canadian, and he said, I don't even know if it's on the level. And I said, well, who's giving you the information? And he says, no, it's a guy. He said, I just wanted to be sure that would be a possible thing to happen. I said, it's a possible thing to happen. We've all been waiting for it for like 50 years. And he said, well, should we publish the article? I said, yeah. And so that was Wendy's first recognition in the San Diego Union. And I said it was fine, and here she is.
Henry?
Do you have any idea what the surnames of his sons were?
Yeah, Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo de Medrano. That was one of his sons, and the
Okay.
other son was named Diego Sanchez after Beatriz Sanchez de Ortega's brother, who was his friend, and who went to Guatemala with him. They had encomiendas that they held together, the 2 good friends. So when he traveled back to Seville, he married her sister. He married Diego Sanchez de Ortega's sister in Seville. And Diego, he was supposed to be bringing back his cousin, Juana Rodriguez to marry Diego Sanchez de Ortega, but we never found any information about her. And when Diego Sanchez de Ortega died, he was soltero. So, but that was which is not an unusual arrangement in 16th century, or even now. He was going back to Spain to marry his friend's sister and bring back his cousin to marry his friend. You know, it all makes sense.
Life doesn't change in some ways. Okay, if there are not any other questions, let me tell you what is going to happen now. So while Maruja and others are going to be bringing the tapas, we have the drinks there, the sangria, the wine, and other drinks. And if you don't find something that you like there, just let us know. We'll try to find it for you. While that is going on, there are a couple of tables outside. If you feel like it's not too cold and you want to sit down outside in the patio, just go back that way. And also I would like the people that have been condecorated by the governor of Spain with the honorable consul and the honorary, I'm sorry, no,
We understand.
the Consul General of Spain in Los Angeles and the honorary consul here, Rosaura, would like to take some pictures of all of us together. And then if you don't want to sit outside because it's inconvenient or something, we can put a few tables here inside here so you can eat inside.
Just want to say one last thing. I want to thank the two honorary consul generals of San Diego, Maria Olson and Rosaura Picasso. You have been incredible every time I've come to San Diego. You've been a big part of what I enjoy coming to San Diego. So thank you, and I hope we will continue to see each other. Maybe you'll come visit me in Toronto. I was
What?
spare bedroom.
Why don't you introduce Titania
Oh,
and
this
her
is
friend, please?
Tatiana Hurtado de Mendoza and her husband, I believe. We've never met. Tatiana is a Guatemalan Spaniard.
Yeah.
And I've been friends with her mother since the 1980s, a very famous Guatemalan intellectual and sociologist. And Tatiana is a cancer researcher at the
Most cancer center, yeah.
at
UCSD.
USC, yeah. Is it the State University of San Diego?
No, UCSD.
UCSD. Delighted. I think our only Guatemalan here tonight.
And,
Yeah, I can represent.
and your specialty is the cancer of the pancreas?
Yes.
Wow, it's an amazing, she just got a big
Award,
a big reward to continue the research. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, with that, if the people with the condecorations will, I'm sorry. you want to
No,
say-
I have
Oh,
nothing more to say.
Come over,